You're lying in bed at 2 a.m. and your eyes are open. You're not stressed about anything specific. There's no reason you should be awake. But your brain won't turn off. Your legs feel restless, like they need to move, but there's nowhere to go. And somewhere in your chest, there's a flutter that wasn't there 6 months ago, a skipped beat that makes you hold your breath and wait to see if it happens again. The next morning, you can't find the word you want in a conversation. It's a word you've used 1,000 times. It's right there, and it just isn't available. You mention it to your doctor. She nods. It's menopause, she says. It's hormonal. And she moves on to the next thing on her screen. Here's what she didn't tell you. There was a study out of southern Spain that recruited 52 healthy postmenopausal women between the ages of 44 and 76. Before the researchers gave anyone anything, before the trial even started, they ran baseline blood tests. And they discovered that over 80% of these women were deficient in the same nutrient. 80%. Of women nobody had flagged. Women who appeared, by every standard clinical measure, to be fine. The nutrient wasn't exotic. It wasn't something you'd need to order from a specialty company. It was something your body uses in over 600 enzymatic reactions every single day. Something your muscles need to relax. Something your brain needs to form memories. Something your heart needs to maintain a steady rhythm. And something that estrogen used to help your body absorb. Which means the moment estrogen started declining, your levels started dropping with it. And nobody connected those dots. Everything I'm sharing today comes from peer-reviewed research, published trials, systematic reviews, measurable outcomes in real postmenopausal women. This is educational, not medical advice. If you're on medication or managing a diagnosed condition, please work with your doctor before making changes. Today I'm going to show you 7 specific menopause symptoms that the research links back to a single deficiency. Not 7 problems with 7 causes. 7 symptoms, 1 shared root. 1, and the symptom at number 6 is going to make you rethink a supplement you may already be taking. Because the research suggests you might be solving for the wrong deficiency entirely. If this kind of evidence-based women's health research is useful to you, subscribing helps me keep producing it. No pressure, just appreciated. The nutrient is magnesium. And I know, you've heard of magnesium. You might even take it already. But here's what the research suggests is actually happening, and it's not what you think. NHANES data, the largest ongoing nutritional survey in the United States, shows that 48% of all American adults consume less magnesium than their estimated average requirement. But in women aged 51 to 70, the number is significantly worse. 64% of women in that age group don't reach adequate intake. Their average daily consumption is just 238 to 246 milligrams. The recommended amount is 320. So nearly 2/3 of women in this age group are already running low. But that's not the menopause part. This is the menopause part. I call it the drain. Estrogen actively facilitates magnesium absorption and retention in the body. It helps your intestines pull magnesium from food. It helps your kidneys hold on to magnesium instead of flushing it out. These are 2 distinct biological mechanisms, and estrogen supports both of them. When estrogen declines during perimenopause and drops further after menopause, both mechanisms weaken at the same time. You absorb less from every meal. You excrete more through your kidneys. The floor drops out from under your magnesium levels at precisely the age when you were already not getting enough. Research teams studying this at the cellular level found something that stopped me. In neurons, estrogen elevated intracellular magnesium and suppressed inflammatory signaling. But, and this is the critical part, it could only do this when adequate magnesium was present. When magnesium was depleted, estrogen couldn't perform its own anti-inflammatory function, even when estrogen was there. Sit with that for a moment. It means estrogen needs magnesium to work properly, and magnesium needs estrogen to be absorbed properly. They're interdependent, and menopause breaks both sides of that relationship simultaneously, which raises a question that reframes everything that follows. How many of the symptoms we blame entirely on estrogen loss are actually symptoms of the magnesium deficiency that estrogen loss creates? Well, the research points to at least 7, and the first one is the reason you're staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. Symptom number 1, the wired tired cycle. Up to 60% of women going through menopause report sleep disruption, not just a little restlessness. The kind where you're bone tired but your brain won't switch off, where you fall asleep fine but snap awake at 3 a.m. with your mind already racing, where you wake up feeling like you didn't sleep at all even though you were in bed for 8 hours. You've been told this is hormonal. It is. But the pathway runs through magnesium. Magnesium regulates GABA receptors. GABA is the neurotransmitter that quiets neural activity and prepares the brain for sleep. Without adequate magnesium, GABA signaling weakens. Your brain stays in a state of low-grade excitation. You can feel exhausted and still be unable to fall asleep because the biochemical off switch doesn't have enough of the mineral it needs to flip. Magnesium is also a cofactor in the enzymatic pathway that converts serotonin to melatonin. Low magnesium can mean insufficient melatonin production even if you're doing everything else right. Dark room, no screens, consistent bedtime. The raw material for the sleep signal is missing. A 2024 randomized controlled trial found that adults with poor sleep who took magnesium L-threonate 2 hours before bed for 3 weeks showed significantly more deep sleep compared to placebo. They also reported better daytime alertness and mood. 3 weeks, not 3 months. But the reason this hits harder in menopause than at any other time in your life is the drain. Yeah, and you're not just low in magnesium because your diet is imperfect. You're low because the system that helped you absorb and retain it has structurally changed. The deficit deepens every year you don't address it, and every year the sleep gets a little worse. But sleep disruption, as miserable as it is, isn't the symptom that scares women the most. The next one is symptom number 2, the unanchored anxiety. If you've experienced anxiety during perimenopause or menopause that feels fundamentally different from anything you experienced before, you're not imagining things. The character of it is different. It arrives without a trigger. It can feel physical before it feels emotional, a tightness in your chest, a sense of dread that doesn't attach to anything specific, or a feeling of being on edge in situations where you used to feel perfectly calm. Magnesium modulates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the stress response system. When magnesium is adequate, cortisol responses are proportional to the stressor. Something mildly annoying produces a mild cortisol bump. When magnesium is depleted, that proportionality breaks. The same stressor produces a bigger hormonal reaction. Your body overreacts to things it used to absorb without effort. A systematic review of clinical studies found that magnesium supplementation was as effective as pharmaceutical anxiolytics at relieving symptoms in people with mild to moderate anxiety. The researchers flagged that finding specifically because it surprised them. Now layer the drain on top of this. Estrogen itself has anxiolytic properties. No, it helps regulate serotonin. When estrogen declines, serotonin signaling changes. When magnesium drops alongside it, because estrogen was keeping magnesium levels viable, you lose 2 anxiety buffering systems at once. 2 shock absorbers removed from the same vehicle at the same time. The anxiety isn't weakness. It isn't just stress. It's the predictable biochemical result of 2 protective systems declining in tandem. And one of them, the magnesium piece, is directly correctable. Now, the next symptom is the one that sends women to the emergency room, and what happens there is almost worse than the symptom itself. Symptom number 3, the phantom flutter. You're sitting on the couch, reading, watching television. Nothing is happening, and suddenly your heart skips, or flutters, or pounds 3 times fast and then pauses. You freeze. You wait. It happens again. Or it doesn't, and you spend the next hour wondering if it will. You go to the ER, they run an EKG. They tell you everything looks fine. Probably anxiety, someone says. and you go home with no explanation and the same flutter 2 days later. Magnesium is essential for stable electrical conduction in cardiac muscle. It regulates calcium and potassium flow across heart cell membranes. When magnesium is deficient, electrical signaling in the heart becomes less stable. The result can be premature contractions or that flipping sensation women describe. This relationship between low magnesium and cardiac arrhythmia is established medicine. Cardiologists know it well. It's just almost never connected to menopause in a primary care setting. The doctor sees a perimenopausal woman with palpitations, runs an EKG, or finds no structural disease and writes it off as hormonal or anxiety-related. Nobody checks magnesium, or if they do, they check serum magnesium, which reflects less than 1% of total body magnesium and can look completely normal while you're profoundly depleted in the tissues where it matters. I want to be clear. New-onset palpitations always deserve medical evaluation. Don't hear this and skip the doctor. But if you've been evaluated and cleared of structural heart disease, and the palpitations persist in the context of menopause, the magnesium mechanism is worth understanding and worth addressing. The next two symptoms are ones that women most often dismiss as just getting older. But the research suggests something more specific is happening. And it has to do with how magnesium changes the way your nervous system processes pain. Symptom number 4, the volume knob, the leg cramps at 3 a.m., the morning stiffness in your fingers, the aching in your knees that wasn't there 2 years ago, the shoulder that hurts for no reason. The basic mechanism is straightforward. Calcium triggers muscle contraction. Magnesium enables muscle relaxation. When magnesium is depleted, muscles contract more easily and release more slowly. Cramping, spasm, baseline tension. But the part nobody tells you is more interesting than the cramps themselves. Researchers studying ovariectomized mice, the standard animal model for menopause, found that magnesium deficiency directly caused pain, hypersensitivity through neuroinflammation. High-low magnesium led to upregulation of TNF-alpha and IL-1 beta in the dorsal root ganglia, the nerve clusters that process pain signals from the body. In plain terms, low magnesium was making the nervous system interpret pain more intensely, not because there was more tissue damage, because the volume knob on the pain processing system had been turned up. When they supplemented with magnesium L-threonate, the neuroinflammation normalized. Pain sensitivity returned to baseline. And this happened without any change in estrogen levels. The magnesium addressed the downstream problem directly. That finding matters because it suggests that some of the increased pain and stiffness women experience after menopause isn't aging. It isn't inevitable wear and tear. It's the pain system running hotter because a mineral cofactor is missing. Fix the cofactor and the volume turns back down. And if your pain system is running hotter than it should be, what do you think is happening to the organ that processes every sensory signal, every memory, every thought? Symptom number 5, the missing word. You walk into a room and forget why. You search for a word you've used your entire adult life, and it just won't surface. You read a page of a book and reach the bottom with no memory of what you just read. This is one of the most distressing menopause symptoms because it attacks your sense of competence. Women who have run organizations, managed crises, built careers while raising children, suddenly feel like their own brain is unreliable. And the fear underneath it, the one nobody says out loud, is this the beginning of dementia? Usually it isn't, but the mechanism is real. Magnesium is critical for synaptic plasticity, the ability of neural connections to strengthen and reorganize. It's required for proper NMDA receptor function, one of the primary receptor types involved in learning and memory. When magnesium is insufficient, NMDA receptors become dysregulated. Neural noise increases. Signal clarity decreases. The brain doesn't process information with the precision it used to. A review in the World Journal of Psychiatry documented that cognitive impairment during menopause is multifactorial, but highlighted neuroinflammation as a key driver. And we've already seen from the pain sensitivity research that magnesium deficiency drives neuroinflammation directly in neural tissue. One specific detail matters here. Magnesium L-threonate is the only form demonstrated in research to cross the blood-brain barrier and raise magnesium levels in cerebrospinal fluid. Other forms raise serum magnesium but don't reliably increase brain levels. If cognitive symptoms are your primary concern, this distinction is not trivial. The form you take determines whether the magnesium reaches the tissue where you need it. Now, the next symptom is the one I said would make you rethink a supplement you might already be taking, and the study behind it is one of the most quietly important findings in postmenopausal health research. Symptom number 6, the locked door. Bone density loss after menopause is well known. Estrogen-protected bone. Estrogen leaves. Bone thins. Most women know this, and many women, responding to that knowledge, take vitamin D and calcium supplements. But a 2021 review found something specific about magnesium. Women taking 250 milligrams or more of supplemental magnesium showed significantly increased bone mineral density and decreased fracture risk. The mechanism is precise. Magnesium is required for the conversion of vitamin D from its storage form into its active form. Without adequate magnesium, vitamin D sits in your bloodstream in an inactive state. It cannot facilitate calcium absorption. It cannot do the job you're taking it to do. Now remember the study from southern Spain. 52 postmenopausal women. Over 80% were vitamin D deficient at baseline. The researchers divided them into 2 groups. One got 500 milligrams of magnesium daily. The other got a placebo. They didn't give anyone vitamin D. 8 weeks later, the magnesium group's vitamin D levels had risen significantly compared to controls. They didn't supplement vitamin D. They supplemented magnesium, and the vitamin D that was already present in their bodies activated. The door was locked. The vitamin D was standing on the other side, ready to work. Magnesium was the key. The implication is uncomfortable because it means some women taking vitamin D supplements and seeing no improvement in their blood levels may not have a vitamin D problem at all. They have a magnesium problem that's preventing the vitamin D they're already taking from converting to its active form. They're buying the right supplement for the wrong deficiency, and nobody has connected those dots for them. And the final symptom is the one you can't feel happening, which is what makes it the most dangerous. Symptom number 7, the silent shift. There is no sensation associated with rising blood pressure. No feeling when your arteries stiffen, no alert when your cholesterol ratios change. But after menopause, cardiovascular disease becomes the leading cause of death in women. Not cancer, not dementia, heart disease. The Women's Health Initiative, one of the largest studies of postmenopausal women ever conducted, assessed dietary magnesium intake in over 153,000 women. Analysis found that adequate magnesium intake was significantly associated with reduced coronary heart disease and reduced sudden cardiac death. A 2025 meta-analysis in Nutrients, pulling 27 publications and nearly 96,000 people, found that the highest magnesium intake group had a 21% lower risk of metabolic syndrome. The randomized controlled trials within that analysis showed systolic blood pressure reductions of over 4 millimeters of mercury and improvements in insulin sensitivity. 4 millimeters of mercury sounds modest until you learn that cardiovascular epidemiology estimates a reduction of that magnitude translates to a 6 to 12% decrease in stroke rates at the population level. From a mineral that costs pennies per day, estrogen used to provide direct cardiovascular protection. It maintained arterial flexibility. It regulated cholesterol metabolism. It supported endothelial function. When estrogen leaves, all of those mechanisms weaken, and magnesium, which supports many of those same pathways independently, is simultaneously being drained by the same hormonal shift. 7 symptoms, 1 mineral, and a single biological mechanism. On the drain, That explains why menopause specifically drives this deficiency deeper every year. It goes unaddressed. Before I tell you exactly how to fix this, I need to be honest with you about the evidence because the honesty is part of what makes the useful parts trustworthy. The evidence linking magnesium to these 7 symptoms is not uniform. The cardiovascular data is robust, drawn from cohorts of tens of thousands and confirmed by multiple meta-analyses. The sleep data is promising, with randomized controlled trials showing significant effects. The anxiety data is meaningful, with a systematic review showing equivalence to pharmaceutical anxiolytics. The bone density and vitamin D activation data is mechanistically solid and clinically demonstrated in a placebo-controlled trial. And the palpitation connection is well established in cardiology, but has been studied less specifically in menopausal populations. The cognitive data is biologically plausible and supported by the L-threonate research, but large human RCTs in menopausal women are still needed. The pain sensitivity data comes primarily from animal models. I'm not telling you magnesium cures menopause. I'm telling you that a mineral your body uses in over 600 reactions is being systematically depleted by the same hormonal shift causing your symptoms, and that addressing the depletion has documented measurable effects across multiple body systems. The strength of that documentation varies by symptom, and now you know exactly where it's strongest and where it's still emerging. So, what do you actually do? First, form matters, and this is where the majority of women get it wrong. Magnesium oxide is the most commonly sold form. It's on the shelf at every pharmacy. It's cheap, and it has less than 4% bioavailability. For every 400 milligrams on the label, your body absorbs roughly 16. The rest passes through your digestive system and gives you diarrhea. If you've tried magnesium before and it didn't work or upset your stomach, this is almost certainly what you took. You didn't fail. The product failed you. Magnesium glycinate is bound to the amino acid glycine. High bioavailability, well-tolerated, minimal GI effects. Glycine itself has calming properties. For sleep and anxiety, this is the form the research supports. Magnesium L-threonate is the only form demonstrated to cross the blood-brain barrier and elevate magnesium in cerebrospinal fluid. So for brain fog, memory, and cognitive symptoms, this is the form that reaches the tissue where you need it. Other forms don't. Magnesium citrate has good bioavailability and provides citrate, which independently supports kidney health. At higher doses, it acts as a laxative, which some women actually find useful since constipation is another common menopause symptom nobody warns you about. Second, dose. The tolerable upper intake level for supplemental magnesium is 350 milligrams per day. That's on top of whatever you get from food. Start at 150 to 200 milligrams. Increase to 300 or 400 over 1 to 2 weeks. If you get loose stools, you've overshot. Back off and hold. Third, timing. For sleep, take it 60 to 90 minutes before bed. For general repletion, take it with food. Or an empty stomach reduces absorption and increases the chance of GI discomfort. Fourth, check your medicine cabinet because your existing medications may be part of the problem. Proton pump inhibitors, omeprazole, lansoprazole, pantoprazole, the drugs prescribed for acid reflux, actively reduce magnesium absorption. Diuretics, commonly prescribed for blood pressure, increase magnesium excretion through the kidneys. If you're taking either category and you're not supplementing magnesium in an absorbable form, you're fighting a battle you cannot win through diet alone. If you take thyroid medication, bisphosphonates for osteoporosis, or antibiotics like ciprofloxacin or doxycycline, separate your magnesium by at least 2 hours. Magnesium binds to these drugs and reduces their effectiveness. If you have chronic kidney disease stage 3 or higher, do not supplement magnesium without your nephrologist's direct supervision. Impaired kidneys cannot clear excess magnesium, and the consequences can include dangerous cardiac arrhythmias. For food sources, the standout is pumpkin seeds. 1 ounce delivers approximately 156 milligrams of magnesium, covering nearly half your daily requirement in a handful. Dark leafy greens, particularly cooked spinach and Swiss chard. Almonds, 80 milligrams per ounce. Cashews, dark chocolate above 70% cacao. Black beans and lentils. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds provide about 111 milligrams. Dietary magnesium is always preferable to supplements when possible. Food delivers fiber, cofactors, and companion minerals that affect absorption in ways isolated pills don't replicate. But 64% of women in this age group aren't reaching adequate intake from food alone. For most women after menopause, a combination of dietary optimization and targeted supplementation is how you close the gap. What to expect and when. Week 1. You may notice sleep onset improves. Magnesium's effect on GABA is relatively fast-acting. Some women report better sleep within the first few nights. Expect some digestive adjustment if you're starting a new form. That's normal and typically resolves within days. Weeks 2 through 4, if there was a meaningful deficit, you'll likely notice reduced muscle cramping, less nighttime restlessness, and a subtle shift in baseline anxiety. Not dramatic. Like a background noise you didn't realize was there has been turned down slightly. Months 2 through 3, this is when the metabolic effects become measurable. Blood pressure changes appear in this window. This is also when the vitamin D activation effect emerges, especially if you've been supplementing D and previously saw poor results. The cognitive effects of L-threonate were observed at 3 weeks in the published trial, but clinicians working with menopausal women typically report the clearest improvements at 6 to 8 weeks of consistent use. Give this 90 days before you evaluate. Your body has been depleting for years. Rebuilding intracellular stores to the point where you reliably feel the difference takes months, not days. We started with 52 women in southern Spain. Healthy women, women nobody had flagged, women whose blood tests revealed a deficiency in a mineral their bodies use in over 600 reactions every day. Now, when the researchers gave half of them magnesium for 8 weeks, their vitamin D levels rose. Not because they received vitamin D, because the magnesium unlocked the vitamin D that was already there, sitting in its inactive form, waiting for the cofactor it needed to do its job. That image has stayed with me. The solution was already present in their bodies. It just couldn't be accessed because a cofactor was missing. And the cofactor was missing because the hormone that used to maintain it was gone. And nobody connected those dots for them. 7 symptoms. Sleep that won't come. Anxiety without a source. A heart that flutters for no reason. Pain that runs hotter than it should. A brain that can't find the word, bones that thin in silence, a cardiovascular system shifting without warning, different symptoms, different tissues. In different experiences, one shared thread running underneath all of them, a mineral that estrogen used to protect, that menopause systematically depletes, that over 600 reactions in your body depend on, and that most women in this age group have never had properly assessed. Your body after menopause is not falling apart at random. It is responding to a specific, predictable hormonal shift that creates specific, addressable, downstream deficiencies. This is one of them, arguably the most widespread and one of the most correctable. I've put together a step-by-step blueprint that walks you through exactly how to sleep through the night again, even when your hormones won't cooperate. The exact forms, the exact timing, the exact doses, and the specific sequence that the research supports for rebuilding sleep quality after menopause. It's linked in the description below this video. Leave a comment with the symptom that hit closest to home, or the question I didn't answer. I read every one. Your questions decide what I research next. Keep investigating your health. I'll see you in the next one.